Your own mother shaves her head, tells everyone she's dying of cancer, and ruins your dream career, all because she can't stand seeing you succeed. Well, that's exactly what happened to me, and when I found out the truth, I made sure the entire town knew what kind of monster she really was. If you've ever dealt with a toxic family member who tried to sabotage your happiness, this story is going to hit you right in the gut. Smash that like button if you believe in karma, and subscribe because, trust me, you're not going to want to miss how this ends. My name is Janet, and I need to tell you about my mother, Olivia. Growing up, I thought every mom was like mine, competitive, bitter, and always ready to tear you down the moment you achieved anything. I was wrong. Olivia wasn't just competitive. She was a woman who saw her own daughter's success as a personal attack. When I graduated from architecture school with honors, she rolled her eyes and said, "Don't let it go to your head. College doesn't mean you're smart in the real world." When I got accepted to my dream internship, she muttered under her breath, "Some girls get everything handed to them." But the worst part? I believed her for years. I thought maybe I was just lucky. Maybe I didn't deserve the opportunities I was getting. Everything changed when I landed my dream job at Peterson & Associates, one of Chicago's top architecture firms. I was 26, fresh out of graduate school, and for the first time in my life, I felt like I was exactly where I belonged. My boss, Nathan, saw potential in me. My coworkers respected my ideas. I was designing real buildings that would stand for decades. When I called Olivia to share the good news, the silence on the other end of the phone stretched for what felt like forever. "Chicago?" she finally said, her voice sharp. "That's awfully far from home." "Mom, it's only 3 hours away. I can visit on weekends." "Don't get too comfortable up there, Janet. Women like you always get replaced. These fancy firms chew up pretty girls and spit 'em out." Women like me? What did that even mean? 6 months later, when I bought my first car, a modest Honda Civic that I'd saved for 2 years to afford, she looked at it with pure disgust. "Must be nice," she said, running her finger along the hood like she was checking for dust. "Some of us didn't have life handed to us on a silver platter." That's when it hit me. My mother wasn't just critical, she was jealous. My success made her feel small, and she couldn't stand it. I started limiting our phone calls. I stopped sharing good news. When my coworker Heather asked why I never talked about my family, I just shrugged and said we weren't close. It was easier than explaining that your own mother wanted you to fail. For 8 months, I lived in blissful peace in my tiny Chicago apartment. I was working on a major project, a community center that would serve underprivileged kids. Nathan had put me in charge of the entire design team. I was thriving. And then came the call that changed everything. It was 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday when my phone rang. I almost didn't answer. I had an early presentation the next morning. But something about the late hour made my stomach clench. "Janet?" My mother's voice was barely a whisper. "Honey, I need to tell you something." My blood went cold. In 26 years, I'd never heard Olivia sound vulnerable. "What's wrong?" "I went to Dr. Peterson last week for some tests." Her voice cracked. "The results came back today. Janet, I have cancer." The world stopped. Whatever issues I had with my mother, she was still my mom, the only parent I had left since Dad died when I was 15. "What kind of cancer? What stage? What are the doctors saying?" It's bad, honey. They're talking about aggressive treatment. Chemo. I don't know if I can do this alone." I was on a plane home within 24 hours. The woman who greeted me at the airport looked nothing like the bitter, sharp-tongued mother I'd left behind. Olivia seemed to have aged 10 years in 8 months. Her skin was pale, her eyes hollow. She moved slowly, carefully, like every step caused pain. "I'm so sorry, Mom," I whispered, hugging her fragile frame. "We're going to beat this together." Over the next 2 weeks, I watched my mother transform into someone I didn't recognize. The woman who used to scrub floors until they gleamed now struggled to lift a grocery bag. She'd sit at the kitchen table, staring out the window with this heartbreaking, lost expression. "I keep thinking about all the things I'll never get to see," she'd whisper. "Your wedding, grandchildren. I wasted so much time being angry." My heart broke. I called Nathan and explained the situation. He was incredibly understanding, even offered to let me work remotely, but I knew I couldn't focus on architecture when my mother was dying. I quit my dream job and moved back home to take care of her. That's when the real performance began. I'll never forget the morning she walked into the kitchen completely bald. I was making coffee when I heard her footsteps, and when I turned around, I gasped so loud I knocked over my mug. "Mom! Oh my God, what happened to your hair?" Her hand flew to her smooth scalp, and tears started streaming down her face. "The chemo," she whispered. "It was falling out in clumps. I couldn't stand to watch it anymore, so I shaved it all off." She pulled a soft pink scarf from her pocket and wrapped it around her head with shaking hands. "The doctor said this would happen. I just didn't think it would be so soon." I broke down sobbing. Seeing your mother bald, vulnerable, preparing for death, it destroys something inside you. I held her while she cried, promising her that hair doesn't matter, that she was still beautiful, that we'd get through this together. The neighbors started noticing within days. Deborah from next door saw Olivia getting the mail in her scarf and immediately came over with a casserole. Victoria from the church called to ask if there was anything the congregation could do. Word spread like wildfire through our small town. My mother played the role perfectly. She'd groan softly when lifting anything heavier than a book. She'd pause mid-sentence and press her hand to her chest, like she was fighting waves of nausea. When people asked how she was feeling, she'd give this brave little smile and say, "Taking it one day at a time." People loved her for it. Our mailboxes filled with cards, the front porch was constantly covered with flowers and home-cooked meals. Olivia had never been more popular in her entire life. And slowly, I started noticing things that didn't quite add up. It was the pills that first caught my attention. Mom kept her medications in a small wicker basket on the kitchen counter, and I'd offered to help organize them into a weekly pill dispenser. When I picked up the first bottle, the label was faded and partially torn. "Mom, I can't read what this medication is. Should I call the pharmacy?" "Tranquilizer." She snatched the bottle from my hands so quickly that I was startled. "No, don't worry about it, I have it memorized." But something about her reaction felt wrong. Over the next few days, I started paying closer attention. The medication bottles were all from different pharmacies. Some of the labels looked years old. And when I quietly checked one while she was in the bathroom, I found nothing but generic multivitamins inside. Then there were the phone calls with her doctor. "Yes, Dr. Williams," she'd say into the phone, making sure I could hear from the kitchen. "The nausea is getting worse." "What? Increase the dose? Are you sure that's safe?" But one afternoon when she thought I was taking a nap, I heard her talking in a completely different tone. "Heather, you need to make your voice deeper. Janet almost figured it out last time. Yes, I know it's crazy, but just play along for a few more weeks." Heather. My mother's hairdresser was named Heather. I felt sick to my stomach, but I told myself I was being paranoid. Surely my mother wouldn't fake cancer, that was unthinkable. Monstrous. The final proof came 3 weeks later, completely by accident. I was looking for stamps in my mother's purse when my fingers found a crumpled piece of paper shoved deep in the side pocket. I almost threw it away without reading it, but something made me smooth it out. It was a to-do list, written in my mother's handwriting. Fundraiser planning. Order flyers with bald photo. Contact Pastor Jeremy about church announcement. Call Peter at the community center about hall rental. Write speech. Remember to cry about leaving Janet behind. Daughter equals leverage. Cry about sacrifice. My hand started shaking. I read it 3 times, hoping I was misunderstanding. But there it was in black ink. Daughter equals leverage. Everything clicked into place. The mysterious medications, the fake doctor calls, the perfectly timed bald head reveals, the convenient timing that pulled me away from my successful career in Chicago, right when I was about to get promoted. My mother wasn't dying. She was performing. And I was her unwilling co-star in the most twisted show imaginable. But I needed to be sure. That night, when she was resting, I confronted her as gently as possible. "Mom, I've been thinking. You haven't told me which hospital you're getting treatment at. Maybe I could come to your next appointment? I'd like to meet Dr. Williams." The mask slipped for just a moment. Her eyes flashed with something cold and calculating before she caught herself. "That's not necessary, Janet. You're already doing so much." "I insist. As your daughter, I have a right to know what's happening with your treatment." That's when she hissed like a snake. "If you had stayed in Chicago, you would have forgotten all about me, wouldn't you? You'd be too busy with your fancy job and your new friends to care if your mother lived or died. This way, you're stuck here where you belong. Don't think you're better than me just because you have some college degree." The venom in her voice was unlike anything I'd ever heard. This wasn't my dying mother speaking. This was the real Olivia. jealous, manipulative, and willing to destroy her own daughter's life to feel important. "You're not sick," I whispered. She laughed, actually laughed. "Prove it." That's when I decided she was about to get exactly what she deserved. My mother had already been planning the fundraiser for weeks. She'd ordered professional flyers with her bald photo and a heartbreaking story about a single mother fighting for her life. She'd convinced Pastor Jeremy to announce it during Sunday service. She'd even contacted the local newspaper to run a feature story about her brave battle. The night of the fundraiser, the community center was packed. I watched from the back as neighbors, church members, and even strangers filled every seat. There were elderly couples who'd driven from 3 towns over, teenagers who'd pooled their allowance money, small business owners who'd donated gift certificates for the silent auction. My mother took the stage wearing a beautiful scarf that Victoria from church had crocheted for her. Under the warm lights, she looked fragile and ethereal, like an angel preparing to fly away. "Thank you all for coming," she began, her voice trembling with just the right amount of emotion. 6 months ago, I thought my biggest worry was an empty nest. My daughter Janet had moved to Chicago for a wonderful job opportunity, and I was so proud of her success. She paused to dab her eyes with a tissue. But then the doctors gave me news that changed everything. Stage 4 cancer, aggressive treatment, an uncertain future. The hardest part wasn't facing my own mortality. It was the thought that I might leave this world without having spent enough time with the people I love most. The audience was completely silent, hanging on every word. But then something beautiful happened. My darling Janet gave up her dream job and moved home to take care of me. She sacrificed her future so I wouldn't have to face this battle alone. Thunderous applause filled the room. People were openly crying. I watched as they lined up to drop checks and cash into the donation boxes, their faces full of compassion for this brave woman and her selfless daughter. When the donations were tallied, the total was staggering, $23,000. That's when I stood up. "Excuse me," I called out, walking toward the front of the room. "Before we close tonight, I'd like to share something with everyone." My mother's face went pale, but she couldn't stop me without causing a scene. "Mom, could you help me with this projector? I put together a little presentation about your journey." The first slide appeared on the screen. Official letterhead from Chicago General Hospital, stating, "No patient by the name Olivia Martinez has been treated at this facility." Confused murmurs rippled through the crowd. The second slide, a screenshot of phone records showing multiple calls to Dr. Williams, except the number belonged to Heather's hair salon. People started looking at each other with dawning horror. The third slide, security camera footage from a local wig shop, showing my mother laughing and joking with the sales clerk, while purchasing scarves and trying on different styles. But I wasn't done. I pulled out the crumpled to-do list and read it aloud. Daughter equals leverage, cry about sacrifice. The silence in that room was deafening. Then someone in the back shouted, "She's a fraud!" Others started demanding their money back. Pastor Jeremy looked like he might faint. My mother tried to maintain her act for about 30 seconds before the rage took over. "You ungrateful little bitch," she screamed, her voice strong and healthy. "I gave you everything. I raised you alone after your father died, and this is how you repay me?" The crowd was stunned. This wasn't the weak, dying woman they'd come to support. This was someone else entirely. "You were going to abandon me in Chicago," she continued, completely exposing herself. "Living your perfect life while I sat here alone. I had to make you come home. I had to remind you where you came from." Security had to escort her out as people demanded refunds and threatened to call the police. The fallout was swift and brutal. By the next morning, fraud complaints had been filed with the police. The local newspaper ran a front-page story about the cancer con artist. Social media exploded with angry posts from people who donated their hard-earned money to a lie. My mother was forced to refund every single penny to avoid criminal charges. Her reputation in our small town was destroyed overnight. Neighbors crossed the street to avoid her. The church banned her from all activities. Even Heather, her hairdresser accomplice, publicly apologized and refused to serve her. But the most beautiful part? When I called Nathan to explain what had happened, he didn't just offer me my old job back. He offered me a promotion. Turns out the way I'd handled the situation impressed him. "Anyone who can expose fraud with that level of evidence and composure," he said, "is exactly the kind of person we want leading our investigative design team." I moved back to Chicago within the month. My mother's bald head started growing back patchy and uneven, fitting for someone whose lies were finally catching up with her. She sits alone in that house now, with no audience for her performances, and no daughter to manipulate. Do I feel guilty? Not for a single second. Because while her cancer was fake, her jealousy was real, her willingness to destroy my dreams was real, her manipulation and lies were real. I refused to let her kill the life I'd worked so hard to build. And sometimes, the best revenge is simply refusing to be a victim. If this story taught you anything, let it be this. Toxic people will use any weapon they can find, even fake illnesses, to control your life. But you have the power to expose the truth and take back control. Hit that subscribe button if you believe in standing up to manipulative people, and let me know in the comments, have you ever dealt with someone who tried to sabotage your success? Justice isn't always served by the courts, sometimes you have to serve it yourself.